Hey everyone, I'm Grant and welcome back to the channel. I know I haven't done an update for 3 weeks because I have been having problems, and it's all with the Ford 6R80. So what I'm going to do today real quick is go for a long drive and see if this last band-aid fix has actually solved my issues. I'm not holding my breath. So let me go over real quick everything I've been doing over the last 3-ish weeks. The first thing I did, I replaced the turbo. I went to a smaller turbo, mainly because the old one was too loud and the boost came on like an on and off switch. Now, I'm sure that could have been fixed with a tune, but it was cheaper and easier to just replace the turbo. So what I did was I got a turbo from Europe that's the same physical size as the stock BEW TDI turbo, but it has a 360-degree sleeve bearing and a billet center section. And that's it. And while I'm driving, I'm going to go ahead and show you the quick time lapse of me installing it. The other thing I did was I finally got the power steering and hydro boost working. Unfortunately, it involved me destroying a $200 pump, having to get a new pump, the same one, going to a new reservoir, all new silicone hoses, and having to realize that routing the return line from my steering box to my reservoir was creating a massive restriction. So once I bypassed the transmission cooler on my radiator, it started working. Now while I was doing all of this, I was fighting my transmission downshifting out of 5th gear back to 3rd, even though in the last video of this Wrangler, it was fixed. Now the first time that I started doing it again, I thought it was my fault. I actually had wired my autometer gauges into the same power feed line. I did that because my GPS speedometer has to lock to get a signal so it starts working. Now while I don't care too much about the speedometer, I need that lock for the odometer so I can track my fuel economy. And what was happening was when I went to crank the engine, I lost power to the gauges, and then I was sitting there with the engine idling, waiting for it to lock. So after installing the turbo, I realized it was starting to downshift again on me. So I went through trying to troubleshoot it again. I actually changed the tune. I went to a gasoline tune and I painstakingly copied all of my shift points to a gasoline tune because it was interacting with the torque converter differently. I thought that might be the cause of it. Still downshifting out of 5th gear. And it took me a while to realize, wait a second, It was working until I swapped the gauges. So yet again, I rewired everything, got a new relay, and gave it its own dedicated power line. Here's what I have done. This relay is now powered directly to the Quick 6. It is fused, because that's what you have to do. I might have to, there we go. That's better. And that fuse is connected to this blue wire here. And that actually worked for about 100 miles. And then it started downshifting on me again. Now, this entire time, I have not been able to capture the downshift on a data log, no matter what I do. So, right now, I also have the USB cable that goes into the controller plugged in to my cigarette lighter, trying to replicate what the laptop does. And it just did it again. I am so tired right now of this. This is what I've been fighting for 3 weeks. That right there. And the annoying thing is it worked for 100 miles. I don't know anymore. I could have the wrong torque converter. There could be an internal problem with the transmission. It just did it in 4th gear. Hey everyone, it's been a couple of days since that last test drive, and I needed that time to really think about what I'm going to do. And I want to go ahead and say there have been a lot of issues I've run into with the 6R80 that I never talked about on camera. And I've been having constant issues either with the transmission or the tune or the torque converter or the cooling pretty much for the last 18 months since I decided to swap to it. And I'm basically done trying to figure it out because every solution I've been looking at to fix my current problems is going to cost thousands of dollars. The torque converter might be wrong. $1,600 for a new torque converter with a very long lead time. I looked at rebuilding the transmission, which was going to be over $2,000. No one close to me is doing it right now because parts are back ordered. I looked at replacing the 6R80 with a newer version. In 2014, they did a refresh that kind of fixed a couple of the inherent design flaws with it. The cheapest one I've been able to find in a 300-mile radius that's 4-wheel drive and designed for a modular V8 is $2,000. And if I thought that would absolutely fix it and I would be done, I think I would take the gamble. But seeing as every time I've been messing around with this 6R80 for the last 18 months, there's always been some kind of issue that pops up. I just don't want to take that kind of financial risk. So what I'm going to do is yank out the Ford 6R80, and I'm going to go back to an AW4 4-speed automatic out of an XJ Cherokee. And basically for a very specific few reasons. One, I already own 2 AW4s. I have the early style and the later style. I'll go into that in another video. But I already own them. I have a brand new heavy-duty torque converter, and that torque converter is pretty well matched for the TDI because my TDI is making very similar power to a 4-liter inline 6 that originally came in this TJ Wrangler. The other thing is, I already have the controller. I still have the CompuShift controller that I originally ran when I had a Kubota V2403 in this Wrangler. And I really like this controller. I really like the way it's built. I like the way you interact with it, which is something I don't like about the Quick 6. Quick 6, you have to have Windows. Supposedly, you can use newer versions of Windows. I have only ever been able to communicate with the Quick 6 running Windows 95. I wasn't able to get XP, 7, 8, or 10 to work and communicate with that controller. So, you take all of that plus all the issues I've been having, I just don't have a lot of confidence in the 6R80. I think it is a fantastic transmission in theory. I think for what I'm doing right now, there's not enough aftermarket development behind it yet. And because I want to take this Jeep off-roading, on trails, on long overlanding trips, or even just 6 hours to the coast, to the beach, I want something where I have confidence the transmission is going to work. And with all the shifting issues and other issues I've had with that Ford 6R80, the confidence just is not there. So I realize this is going to be a bit of a shock to everyone, but I am going to swap to the 4-speed automatic because I know it works. I know I can tune it, and I know I can easily replace it. So that's what I've decided to do. That's going to be what I'm going to be doing in upcoming videos. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Goodbye.